The soft chime of an incoming message pulled Lieutenant Juwu from her deep focus on mission reports. Floating in her zero-gravity quarters aboard the research vessel Constant, she pushed herself toward the small communication terminal. A holographic envelope flickered before her, adorned with delicate geometric patterns that sparked immediate recognition. It was Hiren's personal signature, a sight Juwu hadn't seen in nearly 3 years. "Open message," she commanded, her heart quickening slightly. The envelope unfolded into an elegant invitation, displaying Hiren's face alongside a handsome man Juwu had never seen before. Hiren's dark eyes sparkled with the same confidence Juwu remembered from their academy days, though her once wild hair was now styled in the severe precision favored by high-ranking officers. "Lieutenant Juwu." The message began formally before switching to a warmer tone. "My oldest friend, I'm getting married. Do-hyun and I request your presence not just as a guest, but as my bridesmaid at our wedding on Proxima Station next month." Juwoo's fingers hovered over the projection, tracing Hiren's face. They had once been inseparable, from their first day at Stellar Academy through their early deployments. But paths diverge in space, just as they do on Earth. Hiren had climbed the command ranks rapidly, while Juwu specialized in xenobiology, her research taking her to the farthest reaches of settled space. The invitation continued with details about Proxima Station, a massive luxury habitat orbiting Alpha Centauri, known for its recreation of Earth environments and exclusive social circles. It represented everything Juwu had deliberately stepped away from when she chose her research path. "Remember how we used to talk about visiting Proxima someday?" Hiren's recorded voice continued. "Well, I've been stationed here for a year now. It's everything they say it is, Juwu. Beautiful. Important. The perfect place to start our future together." Juwoo's smile faded slightly. She tapped the corner of the invitation, revealing the fine details of the ceremony. Her system automatically highlighted several concerning items. The reception would feature traditional Proximian cuisine, every dish featuring bioneural elements, living tissue cultivated specifically for consumption. Juwoo's hand instinctively went to her throat, where a small medical implant monitored her body's reactions. Her eco-synthetism wasn't just an ethical choice, it was medical necessity. After an exploratory mission gone wrong 5 years earlier, her immune system had been permanently altered. Non-synthetic nutrients triggered increasingly severe reactions. She turned to look at her medication dispenser, counting the emergency doses. Would it be enough for a week on Proxima? She should tell Hiren about her condition. But then again, Hiren hadn't asked about her health or research in years, despite Juwoo's occasional messages. "I know it's been too long." Hiren's voice softened, as if reading Juwoo's thoughts. "We've both been busy changing the universe in our own ways. But some things shouldn't change, like us being there for each other's big moments. Say yes, Juwu. I need my oldest friend beside me." The invitation faded to a simple response option: accept or decline. Juwu closed her eyes. In her mind, she saw 2 young cadets promising to attend each other's weddings someday, no matter where in the galaxy they might be. That was before divergent careers, before her accident, before the silence that had grown between them. "Accept," she finally said. The confirmation chimes sounded surprisingly final. Juwu pushed herself toward her small closet, pulling out her dress uniform. It would need pressing before she could wear it to Proxima, that hub of fashion and power. She wondered if her old friend would even recognize the person she'd become. Later that night, Juwu messaged her medical provider requesting additional emergency synthesization packets. For a wedding, she wrote in the reason field, trying to ignore the uneasy feeling growing in her stomach. She composed a separate message to Hiren about her dietary requirements, but after several rewrites, saved it as a draft instead of sending it. This was Hiren's moment. Juwu didn't want to complicate things or seem difficult. Surely there would be something she could eat at such a prestigious venue, and if not, she'd come prepared. The Constant would reach a transfer point in 3 days. From there, It would be a straight shot to Proxima Station, and to a reunion Juwu now approached with equal parts hope and apprehension. The transport shuttle docked smoothly at Proxima Station, its engines humming to silence as Juwu gathered her bags. Through the viewport, she could see the station's famous glass-domed gardens, where earth plants grew alongside alien flora in carefully maintained harmony. Sunlight filtered through the massive structure, casting rainbow patterns across the arrival terminal. Lieutenant Juwu? A uniformed attendant approached as she stepped off the shuttle. Captain Hiren sent her regrets that she couldn't meet you personally. I'm to escort you to the pre-wedding gathering already in progress. Juwu nodded, hiding her disappointment. She had hoped for a private reunion before the social whirlwind began. The attendant led her through gleaming corridors where the station's wealthy residents strolled in the latest fashions. Juwu felt suddenly aware of her practical travel clothes. They arrived at an observation lounge transformed into a celebration space. Crystal decorations caught the light of the nearby star, sending prisms dancing across the faces of at least 50 guests. In the center stood Hiren, radiant in a shimmering dress that seemed to change color with her movements. Juwu. Hiren broke from her conversation, crossing the room with practiced grace. You made it. She embraced Juwu briefly, the scent of exotic perfume overwhelming. You look exactly the same, she said, her tone suggesting this wasn't entirely a compliment. You look incredible, Juwu replied honestly. Congratulations on everything. Come meet Dohyun. Hiren pulled her toward a tall man surrounded by admirers. Darling, this is my academy friend I told you about. Dohyun turned, his eyes assessing Juwu quickly before his face warmed with a practiced smile. The scientist. Hiren mentioned your fascinating work, something about plants. Xenobiological adaptation research, Juwu corrected gently. We study how. Fascinating. He interrupted, already looking past her. You must try the neural crysts, imported from my family's cultivation tanks on Proxima IV. A server appeared with a tray of glistening appetizers that pulsed with faint bioluminescence. Juwu stepped back instinctively. Actually, I need to speak with you about the food, Juwu said quietly to Hiren. I sent a message, but maybe you didn't receive it. I have some dietary restrictions, medical ones. I can't consume bioneural material. Hiren's smile tightened. Let's discuss this later, she whispered, steering Juwu away from Dohyun's group. The magistrate of Proxima Commerce just arrived. Throughout the next hour, Juwu tried repeatedly to explain her situation, but Hiren kept introducing her to important guests before vanishing to greet others. The servers continued offering only neural-infused foods and drinks. Hungry and increasingly anxious, Juwu finally cornered Hiren near the refreshment table. Hiren, I'm serious. I can't eat any of this. Is there something else available? Even synthesized protein would be fine. Hiren's pleasant expression dropped. Synth food. Here, she hissed. Do you know how hard I work to arrange authentic Proximian catering? Dohyun's father had to call in favors from 3 systems away. I understand, but this isn't a preference. Since my accident. What accident? Hiren frowned. The question struck Juwu like a physical blow. The Epsilon 9 exposure. I wrote to you about it 3 years ago. It affected my immune system. Recognition flickered in Hiren's eyes, followed by dismissal. Right, yes. Look, we can't change the menu now. The Proximian feast is central to the marriage ceremony. Dohyun's family would be deeply offended. I'm not asking you to change everything. I just need one option. You always did this, Hiren said, her voice cooling. Made things complicated. This wedding is the most important moment of my career, my life. Dohyun's family controls half the shipping routes in this sector. Do you understand what that means for my advancement? Juwu stared at her friend, truly seeing the changes time had wrought. Hiren's ambition had always been strong, but it had hardened into something unrecognizable. I'll figure something out, Juwu said finally. Good. Hiren's smile returned instantly. "Oh, there's the station commander. You must meet him. His daughter is joining Stellar Academy next year." As Hiren glided away, Ju touched her medical implant, feeling it warm against her skin. An early warning. The air itself contained trace amounts of neural matter, standard in Proximian environments, but potentially dangerous for her condition. Across the room, she caught Do-yeon watching her with cool curiosity. He raised his glass in a small toast, a knowing look in his eyes that suggested he understood exactly what had transpired. Ju-woo wondered, not for the first time, if coming had been a mistake, but as she looked at Hiren, now laughing with practiced charm among her new social circle, she realized the friend she had come to support had disappeared long before this reunion. The central dome of Proxima Station had been transformed for the wedding ceremony. Floating bioluminescent orbs cast a soft blue glow over the gathered guests. Living flowers that responded to sound bloomed and closed with each note of music. Ju stood with the other bridesmaids, all wearing matched gowns that rippled like water with each movement. The ceremony began with the release of memories, a Proximian tradition, where scented neural particles were released into the air, designed to enhance emotional receptivity. As the particles filled the room, Ju felt the first warning signs, a slight tightness in her chest, a tingling along her arms. She discreetly pressed the emergency medication release on her implant, hoping it would be enough. "You look pale," whispered Minna, another bridesmaid. "Are you okay?" Ju nodded stiffly, focusing on her breathing. The ceremony continued with the exchange of life promises, where Hiren and Do-yeon shared a cup of neural wine. The liquid glowed with the same bioluminescence that filled the room. Ju's vision blurred slightly as she watched. When it came time for the bridesmaids to present the ceremonial gifts, Ju stepped forward, fighting against the growing weakness in her legs. She handed Hiren the ornate box containing symbolic tokens from their shared past, a small replica of a Stellar Academy insignia, modified to match the wedding's aesthetic. "Thank you, old friend," Hiren said, but her eyes were already moving past Ju to the important guests. By the time the 3-hour ceremony concluded, Ju's implant had delivered 2 emergency doses of anti-rejection medication. It wasn't designed for prolonged exposure. Her system was fighting a losing battle against the bioneural particles that now saturated the air. The reception was held in an even more elaborate hall, where neural-infused food filled every table. Floating trays offered delicacies that moved slightly on their platters. Ju searched desperately for anything she might safely consume. Even the water contained enhancement particles meant to complement the dining experience. Not eating. Do-yeon appeared beside her, his expression curious rather than concerned. Hiren mentioned you have some unusual dietary preferences. Medical restrictions, Ju corrected, her voice weaker than she intended. Is there any non-neural food available? Even station-standard synthesized protein would help. Do-yeon's smile didn't reach his eyes. That would be considered quite insulting at a Proximian celebration. Neural cuisine is the height of our cultural expression. He lowered his voice. Perhaps you should have considered that before accepting the invitation. He moved away to greet more important guests, leaving Ju leaning against a pillar for support. Her implant was now flashing red warnings only she could see, projected directly onto her retina. The moment came for the traditional toast. All bridesmaids were required to stand beside the couple. Ju made her way to the front, each step requiring conscious effort. The room seemed to tilt and sway around her. Servers distributed neural champagne, living bubbles that would burst with flavor memories when consumed. Hiren's father began the toast, his voice echoing strangely in Ju's ears. She felt heat spreading through her chest, her breathing becoming shallow. The glass in her hand felt impossibly heavy. To new beginnings, everyone echoed, raising their glasses. Ju tried to lift hers, but her arm wouldn't respond. The glass slipped from her fingers, shattering on the floor. She reached out, trying to steady herself, and accidentally grabbed Hiren's elaborate dress train as she crumpled to her knees. The room went silent. "Ju-woo." Hiren's voice cut through the silence, sharp with anger rather than concern. "What are you doing?" "I can't." Ju-woo tried to explain, but her throat was closing. Red warning symbols filled her vision. "She's ruining everything," Hiren hissed to Doyeon, loud enough for nearby guests to hear. "I told you she's always been dramatic for attention." Ju-woo felt herself falling, the beautiful floor rushing up to meet her. Through dimming vision, she saw Hiren's expression. Not concern, but embarrassment and rage. Someone else pushed through the crowd, a station medical officer who had recognized the signs of neural rejection. "She needs emergency treatment," the officer announced, scanner already out and registering Ju-woo's critical condition. "This appears to be Class 3 neural rejection syndrome." "That's impossible," Hiren protested as the medical team rushed in. "Nobody has that. Her medical implant is registered with Interstellar Health Services," the officer replied, data flowing across his portable screen. "Lieutenant Ju-woo, research vessel constant, severe neural sensitivity following Epsilon-9 exposure. It's all here in her records." The last thing Ju-woo heard before consciousness faded was Hiren's cold voice. "Well, she should have told me. This is completely inappropriate." In the station's medical bay, Ju-woo awoke hours later, connected to machines filtering her blood. The chief physician looked down at her with professional concern. "You experience severe neural rejection syndrome," he explained. "If you hadn't had that implant, we might not have been able to save you. What were you doing at a Proximian ceremony with your condition?" Ju-woo closed her eyes, the weight of humiliation as heavy as her physical symptoms. "Attending my best friend's wedding," she whispered. But even as she said it, she knew that the friend she remembered no longer existed. The Interstellar Civil Court on New Geneva Station looked nothing like the courts of old Earth. Instead of wood and stone, it featured adaptive surfaces that shifted to accommodate each species' comfort needs. Today, the surfaces were set for human standard, though Ju-woo noticed several sections adjusted for delegates from other systems. Case 47,293. Lieutenant Ju-woo versus Proxima Station Cultural Authority, announced the automated system. Subject: biological accommodation rights. Ju-woo sat beside her advocate, a serious woman named Minji who specialized in emerging biological rights cases. 6 months had passed since the wedding disaster. 6 months of medical recovery and difficult decisions. "Are you certain you want to proceed?" Minji asked quietly. "There's still time to withdraw. Captain Hiren's family has significant influence." "Unsure," Ju-woo replied, though her stomach twisted with anxiety. She hadn't wanted this. The lawsuit had begun simply as a medical complaint filing, standard procedure after her hospital stay. But when Proxima Station refused to update their event policies to include warnings about neural content, the case had escalated. On the other side of the court sat the Proxima Station representatives, and among them, Hiren herself. Her new diplomatic uniform gleamed with insignia denoting her rapid rise through political ranks. Her marriage to Doyeon had accelerated her career exactly as planned. She didn't look at Ju-woo. "The court recognizes both parties," began the adjudicator, a stern woman with implants that connected her directly to legal databases. "This case will determine whether public venues must provide accommodation and warning for biological incompatibility issues, specifically regarding neural active elements." What had begun as a personal matter had somehow become something much larger. Outside the court, protesters gathered on both sides. Some carried signs supporting natural human traditions, while others demanded biological equality for all adaptations. Minji presented Ju-woo's case first, displaying the medical scans taken after the wedding incident. Lieutenant Ju-woo experienced life-threatening rejection that could have been easily prevented with simple accommodations. As humans continue to adapt to different environments across our expanding territory, such biological variations are becoming more common. The Proximian representative countered immediately. Proximian neural cuisine is a protected cultural practice dating back 3 centuries. Requiring alternatives would place undue burden on our traditions and imply our practices are somehow harmful. As they argued legal points, Jiwoo found herself looking at Hyerin, searching for any remnant of the friend she had known. Their eyes met briefly across the room, and Hyerin's gaze hardened before she looked away. During a recess, Jiwoo stood alone in the observation area, looking out at the stars. A familiar voice spoke behind her. "You could have just talked to me instead of doing this." Hyerin's voice was cold, controlled. Jiwoo turned. "I tried to talk to you. At the pre-wedding event, remember? And now you're trying to force all of Proxima to change their customs because you had one bad experience." Hyerin shook her head. "I never thought you'd become so political." "Political? This is medical, Hyerin. I nearly died. Please." Hyerin stepped closer. "Everyone knows this is about the synth agenda. Using medical cases to push for more synth rights, more synth accommodations. Doyen's father says people like you want to remake human space in your image." Jiwoo stared at her former friend. "People like me? You mean researchers who had accidents, or just anyone different from your new social circle?" Hyerin's expression didn't change. "The newscasts are calling you the face of the synthetic adaptation movement. Enjoying your fame. I didn't ask for any of this. I just don't want others to suffer what I did." "Others should take responsibility for their own conditions," Hyerin replied, "not demand the universe change for them." Before Jiwoo could respond, they were called back to the court. The case stretched over 3 days, becoming more heated as interstellar media amplified every argument. What had begun as Jiwoo's personal medical complaint transformed into a landmark case about the rights of humans with synthetic adaptations versus traditional human practices. On the final day, the adjudicator addressed both parties directly. "This court recognizes both the importance of cultural traditions and the changing nature of human biology in our expanding civilization. Both must be respected for humanity to move forward together." The ruling established the biological notification protocol, requiring clear labeling and alternative options at public events, while preserving traditional practices for those who could participate safely. Outside the court, reporters swarmed Jiwoo. "How does it feel to have changed interstellar law?" one shouted. Jiwoo looked past them to where Hyerin stood with her delegation, their expressions grim. In their victory, she felt only sadness for what had been lost. A friendship that once seemed as vast and endless as space itself. "I just hope it helps people understand each other better," she said quietly, knowing that in her own case, understanding seemed further away than ever. Retrius F 3 months after the court ruling, Jiwoo sat in her lab aboard the research vessel Constant, carefully adjusting the growth parameters for a new batch of synthetic proteins. The court victory had brought changes across human space. Signs now appeared at public gatherings indicating neural content levels, and alternatives were becoming standard. Progress, though slow, was happening. Her communication terminal chimed with an incoming message marked urgent and private. Expecting research data, Jiwoo was shocked to see Hyerin's name on the sender line. They hadn't spoken since the final day in court, when Hyerin had walked away without a word. Jiwoo hesitated before opening it. The message was simple. "I need to see you. Can you come to Medical Facility 5 on Proxima Station? It's important." No explanation, no pleasantries. Typical Hyerin directness. Jiwoo considered ignoring it, but curiosity won out. She requested temporary leave from her commanding officer, citing personal matters. 3 days later, Jiwoo stood outside the private medical facility on Proxima Station. The neural filtration system at the entrance scanned and cleared her before the doors slid open. Inside, she found Hyerin sitting alone in a waiting area. Looking smaller somehow, her usual confidence diminished. "You came," Hyerin said, standing awkwardly. "I wasn't sure you would." "Your message said it was important," Jiwoo replied carefully. Hyerin gestured to a private consultation room. Once inside, she activated the privacy field before speaking. "I'm pregnant. she said without preamble. 10 weeks. Congratulations, Juwu offered, confused about why this required her presence. Hiren's composed expression cracked slightly. The standard genetic screening showed something unexpected. She handed Juwu a medical tablet. Juwu reviewed the data, her eyes widening as she understood. The fetal genetic scan showed markers for severe neural protein rejection syndrome, the same condition Juwu had developed after her accident. But in this case, it was a natural genetic trait, not an acquired condition. This can't be right, Juwu said. The chance of natural occurrence is less than 0.01%. They've run it 3 times, Hiren confirmed. Apparently, Do-hyun's family has a recessive genetic trait. It never manifested because they've always consumed neural proteins from birth, which prevents the sensitivity from developing. But our child will be like me, Juwu finished, unable to process neural material at all. Hiren nodded, her hands protectively covering her still flat stomach. The doctors say our baby will need completely synthetic nutrition from birth. No traditional Proximian foods. Ever. Her voice broke slightly. Do-hyun's family is devastated. They're talking about genetic modification to correct the defect. It's not a defect, Juwu said firmly. It's just different. I know that now. Hiren met Juwu's eyes directly. I was wrong, Juwu, about everything. The things I said, the way I treated you, I didn't understand. The admission hung between them, fragile as a newly formed star. What do you need from me? Juwu asked finally. Help, Hiren said simply. I don't know how to prepare for this. Do-hyun is trying, but his family, they see it as shameful. I need someone who understands what my child will need. Over the next several hours, they talked like they hadn't in years. Juwu explained the realities of synthetic adaptation, the challenges, but also the unique perspectives it offered. Hiren shared her fears about raising a child who would always be different in Proximian society. The court ruling helps, Hiren admitted, but it's just the beginning. There's so much more needed. As they talked, an idea formed between them, something bigger than their personal reconciliation. 6 months later, they stood together at the launch of the Biological Compatibility Initiative, a new program combining Juwu's scientific expertise with Hiren's diplomatic connections. What had begun as a personal rift had transformed into a movement that would change how human space viewed biological diversity. Our differences aren't weaknesses to be corrected, Hiren told the gathered delegates, her pregnancy now visible beneath her formal attire. They're adaptations that make humanity stronger as we expand across the stars. Beside her, Juwu operated a demonstration showing how simple accommodations could create inclusive environments for all human variations. The same brilliance that had once made her an excellent researcher now focused on solving practical problems of biological inclusion. Later, away from the crowds, the former friends stood at a viewport watching ships arrive from across human space. Do you think she'll forgive me for being so stubborn? Hiren asked, looking down at her rounded stomach. Children are surprisingly good at forgiveness, Juwu replied with a smile. Better than adults, usually. I'm glad she'll have you in her life, Hiren said. Every child needs an aunt who understands them. Juwu felt something heal that had been broken inside her for a long time. Not just her friendship with Hiren, but her sense of belonging in a world that had often made her feel like an outsider. We'll make sure she never has to choose between who she is and where she belongs, Juwu promised, and for the first time in years, it felt like a promise they would keep together. Retriclaude can make mistakes. Please double-check responses.